When I came into this world, my father didn't grin, and my mother didn't shed a tear. They just stared at me like the nurse had carried in the wrong baby. I was their first child, Janelle Brooks, but I wasn't the son they were praying for. Nobody had to say that out loud. I felt it. I saw it. In the way they bragged about my younger sister's dimples, but barely noticed my certificates. In every tired sigh I heard through closed doors. In the way my mother's hands always seemed too busy for my hugs. "It's all right. Next time we'll have a boy." I heard my mom murmur that to my dad one stormy night when I was about 4. "Next time" showed up 3 years later in the form of my little sister, Betrayal. But instead of disappointment, the house lit up like sunrise. My mother lifted Betrayal in the air and cried, "Look at her, she's perfect." Everyone laughed, clapped, fussed over her. I sat in the corner with my frayed stuffed rabbit, legs tucked to my chest, wondering why I suddenly felt like a stranger in my own home. Betrayal looked just like Mom, smooth brown skin with a honey glow, loose curls that fell around her face, big soft brown eyes, and a smile that made adults bend toward her like plants to sunlight. Me. I took after my dad's side, the side my mother never had a kind word for. My jaw was sharper, my nose wider, my coils tighter, my eyes a deep, steady brown that never did sparkle the way they liked on baby pictures. Betrayal had a way of sinking into people's hearts without trying. She could knock over a glass vase and still get scooped up into my mother's arms with a laugh and a gentle, "Girl, you are too clumsy for your own good." If I so much as spoke too loudly at dinner, my father's fork would clatter to his plate. "Girls shouldn't be making all that noise," he'd say, not looking at me. It didn't take long for me to understand that in our house, survival meant self-reliance. By the time I hit 3rd grade, I knew how to tie my own shoelaces, pack my lunch, and walk myself to school. Betrayal, meanwhile, had her cereal poured and toast buttered for her well into middle school, like she'd somehow stepped off the cover of a parenting magazine into our kitchen. I never lacked things. I had clothes, school supplies, a room with posters I picked myself. But warmth, affection, real, "I see you, love," that always seemed to stop just short of me. They didn't hit me. They didn't scream in my face. They just didn't care enough. And somehow that hurt more. During my senior year of high school, we sat at dinner like always, forks scraping plates, TV murmuring in the background, no one asking how my day had gone. I cleared my throat. I've decided what I want to study. I got into Metro Central University. They offered me a 65% scholarship to major in economics. Silence stretched over the table. "You sure about that?" my mother asked finally, her voice light and distant, like she was picking a new mop at the store. My father shook his head. "Economics sounds stiff. Why not something more fitting for a young lady? Teaching, nursing, social work." I felt my throat tighten, but I kept my voice even. "I like numbers. I want to work in finance." He stabbed a piece of chicken, smirking. "That's your business. Just don't come running back here if you regret it." Betrayal, then a junior, twirled her hair and chimed in. "I'm thinking about majoring in counseling. I've always been good at understanding people." The moment she said it, both my parents nodded like she just announced a cure for every problem in the world. "That's wonderful," Mom gushed. "That suits you." I stared down at my plate, dragging my fork through gravy that had gone cold. Second place in my own life. That had become my normal. But that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I made myself a quiet promise. I would not let my life be written by their disappointment. I would leave that house. I would build the future I wanted. And I would stop chasing approval that was never meant for me. I met Andre Miller in the university library during my 2nd year at Metro Central. Rain had come down out of nowhere, smearing the windows and flooding the sidewalks. I ducked into the economics section for extra material for a paper on price fluctuations. I was buried in a heavy textbook when a smooth baritone spoke behind me. "You looking for advanced macro theory?" I just put it back on the shelf. I turned and saw him, tall, dark brown skin, a light gray shirt wrinkled like he'd been hustling all day, thin frame glasses perched on his nose, and a smile so open it disarmed me. He reached past me, grabbed the book, and handed it over, fingers still cool from the rain. "Andre," he said. "Senior. Econ major." I shifted the book to one arm and stuck out my hand. "Janelle. Sophomore." Econ 2. That's perfect, he replied. I've got a presentation in Professor Carter's class tomorrow. You should sit in. You'll probably take her next semester. I didn't know why I nodded. Maybe it was the calm way he talked to me, like my presence made sense. Maybe it was because for once, somebody saw me without attaching words like too serious or too cold to it. One class turned into joint study sessions. Study sessions turned into coffee runs that stretched past midnight. Those late-night talks turned into hands brushing by accident, knees touching under tables, and eventually a long, careful kiss under a red oak by the library as midterms crept closer. Andre graduated a year ahead of me and landed a job at an investment firm downtown in Atlanta. He didn't rush off, though. I'll wait for you to finish, he told me one afternoon, sitting beside me on a campus bench, his hand wrapped around mine. If you still want this, if you still want us. I didn't answer right away, but when I finally nodded, that simple nod shifted the entire course of my life. After I graduated, we moved into a small, aging 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of downtown. The paint on the walls was faded, and the floors creaked, but the kitchen was warm enough for late dinners, and the balcony had just enough space for 3 little pots of basil, mint, and lavender. We didn't own much, but we had each other. To me, that felt like wealth. The first time Andre met my parents was on Thanksgiving. I braced myself for a tight, uncomfortable evening. Instead, I walked into something that felt like a parallel reality. Oh, Andre, we've heard so much about you. My mother practically glowed as she pulled him into a hug like he was the missing piece she'd waited for her whole life. My father clapped him on the back. Miller and Ridge Investments. Huh? Big firm. That's serious business. They asked Andre about his position, his promotion prospects, his family. They never once turned to me to ask if I liked my own new job, if I was settling into the city, if I was happy. They looked at Andre the way they had wished they could look at a son, as if the boy they never had finally arrived through my marriage. I smiled through the whole meal, swallowing bites of turkey and greens while their questions rolled over me like I wasn't even there. Across the table, Brielle, now a freshman psychology major, sat with her arms folded, eyes glued to Andre like she wanted to burn a hole right through him. I had never seen her jealous of anything before that night. For the first time, I had something she wanted and couldn't easily take. A year later, one soft spring evening after the city finally shrugged off winter, Andre knelt down right in the middle of our tiny living room. He held up a small gold ring with a single stone and said quietly, "Janelle, you're the one person who makes the chaos make sense. Will you marry me?" Tears blurred my vision as I threw my arms around his neck and whispered yes without a flicker of doubt. I wanted something small and peaceful for our wedding, close friends, gentle music, candlelight. That was enough for me. My mother had other ideas. "You only get married once," she said, waving her hand. "Why keep it so plain? You need a big church, a long aisle, 10 tables at the reception." "It's not we, Mom," I said as gently as I could. "It's me and Andre. This is our decision." In the end, we chose a small garden behind a friend's brick house on the outskirts of the city. Our closest friends gathered, smiling and wiping their eyes. I wore a simple lace dress I picked myself. Andre waited beneath an arch of white flowers, eyes never leaving mine as I walked toward him. I believed I was stepping into a calm new life. I didn't know that behind Brielle's picture-perfect smile, something bitter was already taking root, and that my own family would be the ones to crack open the world I had just built. After the wedding, life fell into a steady rhythm. Andre and I went back to our apartment and found our groove in the blur of city sounds. We cooked dinner together, hunted for bargains at the Saturday market, spent lazy Sundays lying on the couch reading, barely talking yet feeling deeply connected. For a while, it felt like peace. Then the phone call started. "So, Brielle said you two might be trying." My mother began one afternoon, like she had been waiting all day to ask. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. "We're still paying off this apartment, Mom. We're not in a rush. Bills or no bills. Children don't wait for perfect timing. I had you when I was 24. The first time, I let it slide. The second time, I changed the subject. By the third, fourth, and fifth call, my patience ran out. I snapped. I blocked numbers for a while. I dodged family dinners. But it didn't matter. To them, My mother, my father, and Brielle, that one topic became the center of gravity. When would I give them a grandchild? Andre tried to soothe me. Let them say what they want, he murmured, rubbing my shoulder. We're going to live the way we decide. He was still kind. He was still gentle. But their voices crawled into the quietest corners of my mind and refused to leave. Then one evening over dinner at my parents' house, Brielle dropped her bomb. I'm pregnant, she announced loudly, chin tilted, daring anyone to look away. It's Terrence's, she added, as if his name alone carried weight. Terrence, the boyfriend she'd only been with for about 6 months, jobless, drifting between friends' couches, talking big plans, but never holding anything steady. Mom didn't care. She jumped up, wrapped Brielle in a hug, tears filling her eyes. Finally, I'm going to be a grandmother, she squealed. Then she turned to me like someone flipping a page. And you, Janelle? When are you going to give this family something? I clenched my fists beneath the table. I felt Andre's hand brush my leg in a warning touch, telling me silently not to explode. It didn't stop there. As Brielle's belly grew, my parents turned her old room into a nursery, new crib, cartoon wallpaper, tiny clothes folded into drawers. They hung a wooden sign over the crib that said, Baby Layla, like the whole universe had been waiting on her. They called Andre over to help assemble furniture, to look at strollers, to weigh in on diaper brands. At first, Andre seemed hesitant, but he didn't say no. Layla's a sweet baby, he said softly on the ride home after one visit. Being around her makes me think about having one of our own. I forced a crooked smile. We're trying. Remember. And we were. I tracked my cycle on an app. I took vitamins, read articles, watched videos, adjusted our schedule. Every month, I swung between cautious hope and quiet devastation. The test always showed a single line. Each time, I told myself, maybe next month. And every month after that, the same emptiness stared back at me. Meanwhile, Layla was born. The house erupted in photos and clip-filled group messages. Each time I visited, my mother would find a way to slide in a comment. Look at Brielle. So natural, so nurturing, a true woman. The first time, I rolled my eyes in private. The second time, the words tugged at something raw. By the third, I had already booked a doctor's appointment. Andre came with me, his fingers wrapped around mine while we waited. No matter what they say, he whispered, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I wanted to believe him. I really did. The doctor ran tests, took blood, did an ultrasound. A week later, we came back for the results. She looked at me with sad eyes. Janelle, I'm sorry. Your ovarian function is severely diminished. Getting pregnant naturally will be extremely difficult. My ears buzzed. Andre squeezed my hand, but I barely felt it. I walked out of that clinic like somebody had turned down the world's volume. A few days later, I decided to tell my parents. A part of me still hoped they'd finally show some compassion. I can't carry children, I said during dinner while Layla played on the floor with bright plastic blocks. Silence. Then my mother let out a sharp, humorless laugh. What did you just say? We saw a specialist. It's confirmed, I said quietly. Infertility. She put her fork down and shook her head. Lord have mercy. A woman who can't have babies. What kind of woman is that supposed to be? My father didn't look up from his plate. Like a fancy vase that can't hold flowers, he muttered. Brielle snapped her fingers to get Layla's attention and smirked. At least I know how to keep a man. I looked at Andre, hoping, begging. He would say something. Anything. He just lowered his eyes and stayed silent. My throat burned as I pushed my chair back. Thank you for dinner, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Next time, don't invite me if all you want to do is tear me apart. I walked out into the cold Georgia air, wondering for the first time if Andre was really the person I could lean on when life crashed down. After that night, I started noticing the small things. Andre went to my parents' house more often. At first, he had reasons. Your dad asked me to help fix the TV. Your mom wanted help lifting some boxes. But his visits became more frequent, drifting from occasional to routine. Some Saturdays, I woke up to his side of the bed already empty. I just dropped by your folks' place. Layla misses me, he'd say casually when he came home. Layla called him Uncle Dre. He bought her toys, read her bedtime stories, pushed her on the swings when Brielle said she was exhausted. I didn't blame Layla. She was just a child, but every time I saw the way Andre looked at her, a fresh little rip opened up inside me. One evening, I was curled up at my desk, half working, half avoiding my feelings, when I opened social media on my laptop without thinking. A tagged picture with Andre's name flashed across my feed. My heartbeat slowed to a heavy thud. It was a photo of 3 people on a living room couch. Andre in the middle, Layla sitting in his lap, and Brielle leaning into his shoulder, her arm resting comfortably behind him. They looked like a family portrait. The caption read, "Grateful for time with my favorite people." I stared at it, reading it once, then again. His favorite people were my sister and her daughter. I didn't call him. I didn't text him. I didn't ask Brielle anything. I didn't want excuses. I wanted truth. That Saturday night, Andre told me he'd be heading to a meetup with old college friends in Decatur. "Have fun," I said, my voice calm. When he left, I grabbed my keys, but instead of going to our usual spot for coffee, I drove to my parents' neighborhood, parked down the block, and walked across the grass I had played on as a child. The living room lights were on. I could hear laughter through a window cracked just enough to carry voices. I took a step closer. "So, what do you think about Andre and Brielle making it official?" My mother's voice floated out soft, but sharp enough to slice me open. "She's still young," she continued. "She can give him more kids. Unlike Janelle, cold, empty, no use." My father added, "Yeah, she can't give him a family. He deserves better." My head swam. "What are y'all talking about?" Andre's voice came next, low, uneasy, but not outraged. "Baby, you've been taking care of Layla like she's yours," my mother coaxed. "Brielle needs a real man beside her, and you deserve a real home. It's only right." Then Brielle's voice slipped in, syrupy and fragile. "I don't want to wreck anything, but I can't keep pretending either. Andre, I really do love you." Silence hung in the air. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I didn't knock. I didn't wait. I opened the front door and stepped inside. Every head turned. Brielle's face went ghost white. My mother's lips pressed together. My father lowered his newspaper slowly. Andre couldn't even meet my eyes. "Go on," I said, my voice cold. "Finish the conversation. Should I file for an annulment or just go straight to divorce?" Andre scrambled to his feet. "Janelle, I'm sorry," he stammered. "I didn't mean for it." I laughed once, low and bitter. "Are you sorry you betrayed me? Or just sorry I heard it for myself?" Brielle rushed in, tears gathering in her eyes. I didn't want it to happen like this. I stared straight at her. "You've always wanted whatever belonged to me. But Andre isn't a dress you can borrow, or a toy you can snatch when you feel like it." My mother stepped closer, brows drawn. "Janelle, you need to be realistic. A man needs children. You can't give him that. Don't be selfish." I turned to Andre. "So, are you choosing them?" He stared at the floor. His silence was my answer. "Got it," I said quietly. "I'll pack my things in the morning. Have your lawyer send the divorce papers. I don't want your money. I don't want your house. I don't even want your explanation." I walked out, closing the door carefully behind me. The night air hit my face, cool and damp, but inside I felt nothing. Just an empty space where trust had once lived. I left that marriage with one suitcase, my degree, and the one thing they'd never been able to take from me, my dignity. No begging, no dramatic breakdown, no second chances. I took off my wedding ring and left it on the kitchen counter with a short note. "I hope you all find what you were so desperate for. Don't come looking for me." The divorce went through faster than I expected. Andre didn't fight anything. Maybe he understood there wasn't anything left to say. I found a small apartment on the east side of Atlanta where no one knew me as Brielle's sister or Andre's wife. I was just Janelle, the quiet woman who worked in finance, kept to herself, and paid her rent on time. A few months later, I heard that Andre and Brielle had gotten married. A small ceremony, lots of flowers, Layla posing in a tiny dress like the centerpiece of a happy family portrait. I wasn't invited. The news didn't crack me open. If anything, it felt like confirmation that I had escaped something that would have slowly crushed my soul. Word traveled through an old coworker that Brielle was expecting again, a second daughter, Maya. My parents devoted themselves to their beautiful grandbabies, parading pictures around church and family functions. I only smiled when I heard it. Not sarcastic, not resentful, just done. I poured my focus into work. I took a job as a financial analyst at a growing development company. We were busy year-round, and the long hours left little space for me to sit around replaying the past. One crisp October morning, while hustling into a crowded cafe before a meeting, I bumped into a man coming out with a laptop and 2 cups in hand. 1 cup tipped, and coffee splashed across his shirt. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," I blurted, fumbling for napkins. He laughed, easy and warm, taking the napkins from me. "It's cool. I oversweetened it anyway," he said. That was Malik Jordan, 41, founder of a construction tech company trying to modernize how neighborhoods were built up instead of pushed out. We chatted for a minute, both of us half late and half amused, and just before he left, he asked if he could call me sometime. I hesitated, but something in his eyes, steady, patient, made me say yes. Our first date was at a small restaurant near Magnolia Park. No performance, no probing questions, no pressure. Just slow conversation, jokes about small things, and comfortable pauses where neither of us felt the need to fill the silence. I told him about everything. My childhood, Andre, the diagnosis. Malik listened, then took my hand across the table. "I'm not looking for perfect," he said softly. "Just honest." We got married at City Hall a year later. No huge dress, no marching band, no flower girls. Just us, a couple of close friends, and a sign paper. Malik didn't need the world to witness his commitment. He just needed me to understand he was all in. Life with him was gentle. We grocery shopped together. We cooked side by side. We danced in the living room on Friday nights to old R&B playlists. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to earn my place every single day. One morning, I woke up with a wave of nausea that hit before my feet even touched the floor. "Must be something I ate," I muttered, pushing through my routine. But the nausea didn't leave. It lingered for days, joined by dizziness and exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. Malik frowned, crossing his arms as I sat on the couch. "We're going to the doctor," he said. "Today." At the clinic, the doctor ran tests and eventually came back with a small smile. "Congratulations, Janelle," she said. "You're pregnant." I stared at her. "That can't be right," I said. "I was told I couldn't conceive." "The human body is stubborn and surprising," she replied. "It's rare in your case, but not impossible. And it's happening." She handed me an ultrasound printout. On the screen, a tiny blur pulsed. I carried that little sheet home with trembling hands. Malik took it from me, stared at the image, and then looked up. "Is this real?" he whispered. I nodded, and he pulled me into him, burying his face in my shoulder. His body shook as he cried without saying another word. 9 months later, I delivered a baby boy weighing just over 8 pounds at Memorial General Hospital. We named him Amir Malik Jordan. My miracle. My proof that I was never as broken as they told me I was. As I held Amir against my chest, the echoes of old insults faded. No more empty. No more useless. No more not a real woman. All I saw was this warm, squirming little boy breathing against my skin, as if he'd been waiting for me all along. Malik leaned in and whispered in my ear, "You didn't just survive. You won. Not through revenge. Through rebuilding." I had no desire to go back to the people who had thrown me away. The city was big enough for us to live whole lives without ever bumping into each other. Life moved forward. We celebrated Amir's second birthday with a quiet dinner at a cozy Italian spot called Riviera Bistro on the second floor of a small boutique hotel near downtown. My best friend watched Amir for the evening, so Malik, and I could breathe a little. We sat near the window, candlelight flickering on our faces, soft music humming low. I was laughing at one of Malik's terrible jokes when my eyes drifted toward the far corner of the room. There she was, Brielle, hair pressed and styled, dressed tight enough to draw attention, laughing loud enough to fill the space. Across from her sat a man who was very much not Andre. He rested his hand on her thigh under the table like he owned the right. She leaned in close, whispering in his ear until his face flushed. I didn't look away. I reached for my phone, switched it to silent, and snapped a few clean pictures. Her hand on his shoulder, his hand on her leg, the way they leaned into each other like lovers who'd done this 100 times. Then I slid my phone back into my purse, picked up my glass, and smiled at my husband as if nothing had happened. Malik gave me a sideways look, reading me the way he always did. "Everything okay?" he asked. I gave a small nod. "Just an old story finishing itself," I said quietly. A year passed. On a cool October morning, I took 3-year-old Amir with me to the neighborhood grocery store. He zoomed ahead with a tiny red toy car clutched in his hand, imitating the sound of an engine as he raced down the produce aisle. "Slow down, buddy," I called, pushing the cart. Then I heard a voice I knew better than I wanted to. "Janelle!" I turned. My mother stood by the apples, a shopping basket dangling from her arm. Behind her were my father, Brielle and Andre. For a moment, they all looked like they'd seen a ghost. Then their eyes fell on Amir, a little brown boy with big, serious eyes like mine, and Malik's smile spread wide across his face. "And this is," my mother stammered, eyes locked on him. "This is Amir," I said evenly. "My son." Brielle burst into laughter, shaking her head. "There you go lying again," she scoffed. "Everybody knows you can't have kids. Who are you trying to impress?" I lifted Amir into my arms, his legs wrapping around my waist, his tiny hand resting on my shoulder. "I carried him. I delivered him," I said calmly. "And I don't owe proof to people who treated me like trash." My mother took a shaky step forward, eyes glistening. "Janelle, we were wrong," she whispered. "Let me hold my grandson. Just once." I took a step back. "You lost the right to that title," I replied. "You decided I wasn't a woman, a daughter, or anything worth keeping because I couldn't produce a grandchild on your timeline. You don't get to claim him now." Brielle's face flushed. "You're really still playing the victim," she snapped. "Look at you. You finally got a baby, and you act like you're better than everybody. You should be thanking us." I laughed softly, no humor in it. "Thank you," I asked, "for taking my husband, or for acting like the perfect little family while you snuck around behind Andre's back with somebody else?" The air turned heavy. Andre's eyes sharpened as he turned toward her. "What is she talking about, Brielle?" he demanded. I pulled my phone from my bag, opened the folder I had created a year before, and held the screen out to him. "She called it a business dinner," I said. "Do you always kiss your business partners in private dining rooms?" Andre snatched the phone, staring at the photos. His face shifted from confusion to disbelief to fury. "Brielle," he said, voice rough. "What is this?" "It was just a moment," she whispered. "It didn't mean anything." "What about Maya?" he asked, his voice breaking. "You begged me to sign that birth certificate. I want to know the truth." 3 weeks later, word reached me through the same old grapevine that had always carried news back and forth. Andre had ordered a DNA test. The results showed he was the one with the fertility problem, which meant neither Layla nor Maya were biologically his. He filed for divorce and refused to pay for children who weren't his. Brielle was forced to pack up and move back in with my parents, now with 2 little girls in tow, no job, no husband, no shiny title to hide behind. They started showing up. At first, it was phone calls from numbers I recognized but let ring out. Then it turned into knocks at the front gate of the small house Malik and I had rented in a quiet neighborhood. My mother stood at the gate one afternoon with a box of pastries in her hands, like sugar and flour could erase decades. "Janelle, baby, just let us see him," she begged, looking toward the front door. "We know we messed up. We just want a chance to be in Amir's life." Another day, my father came alone, shoulders slumped, face tired. "How's my grandson?" he asked through the metal bars, avoiding my eyes. "Can't we at least say hello?" Sometimes it was Brielle, the same sister who once smirked in my face about knowing how to keep a man, now stood outside our gate, hair pulled back in a tired bun, dark circles under her eyes, each hand gripping a little girl, Layla and Maya, who stared at the house curiously. "Janelle, I know I don't deserve anything," she said one day, voice hoarse. "But they're just kids. They're innocent. We want to make it right. Amir should know his cousins. He should know where he comes from." I sat in the living room, watching them on the security screen. I never opened the gate, not out of hatred, out of self-respect. Malik never told me what to do. He'd just stand near me, one hand resting on my shoulder, present, steady. "You don't owe anybody access to your peace," he said once. "Family is the people who didn't leave when you were at your lowest, not the ones who pushed you there." One afternoon, I sat on the floor with Amir as he drew pictures at the coffee table. Big circles, wild lines, stick people with huge smiles. Later that spring, he started preschool. At the first parent meeting, his teacher handed out a form with a question on top. "Who is in your family?" Amir sat beside me with a sky blue crayon and drew 3 figures. One with a puff of curly hair like mine, one taller with glasses like Malik, and one small figure smiling between them. Underneath, in messy letters, he wrote, "Mom, Dad, and me." I pointed to the paper. "Why did you write just us?" I asked gently. He looked up at me like the answer was obvious. "Because that's our family," he said. "Right, Mommy?" Tears gathered before I realized I was crying. I kissed his forehead, and Malik, standing behind us, squeezed my shoulder. When Amir turned 4, we bought a little house in the suburbs. It wasn't big, but it had a yard where he could race around with toy cars, a kitchen where we cooked dinner together, and a wall of shelves where I kept books ready to teach him every letter, every number, every story. Some nights, after he'd fallen asleep, I'd stand in the doorway watching Malik tuck his blanket around him. Then I'd turn to Malik, the man who stepped into my life quietly and chose to stay, not out of obligation, but out of love. I once believed walking away from Andre meant losing everything. But I hadn't lost. I had traded a brittle imitation of family for something real. I don't carry anger like a burning coal anymore, but I do remember. I remember who turned their back when I needed help, who sat quiet as I was torn apart, who chose to stand beside me when I felt like I had nothing left. I don't need my mother to validate my motherhood. I don't need my father to suddenly remember the day I was born. I don't need Brielle showing up with her children, hoping blood alone will smooth over what she did. Because blood is not what makes a family. Choices. Malik chose me. Amir chose to call him Dad. And I chose myself. I chose to stand up when the world told me I was nothing. I chose healing over bitterness. I chose to love again without letting my heart stay broken. Family doesn't have to be the house you grew up in. Sometimes, it's the place you build from scratch with the people who don't walk away when it gets hard. Once, I was the overlooked daughter, the discarded wife, the sister betrayed. Now, I am a free woman, a joyful black mother, a wife who is loved the right way, fully without conditions. And that is enough. Janelle's journey reminds us that not everyone who shares your blood has earned the right to be called family. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from the people standing next to you at the dinner table. What truly defines us is not what shattered us, but how we rise, who we choose to hold close, and who we learn to let go of. A real family is built on love, respect, and loyalty, not on sacrificing yourself for shallow, temporary approval. What do you think of Janelle's choices and the life she rebuilt for herself? Share your thoughts, and if stories like this speak to you, subscribe for more emotional, raw, and powerful tales about family, love, and starting over.